structure the session in about 20 minutes for the presentation, and then our 20 minutes for discussion. So please be free to ask questions and comments afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm very pleased to be here. I was really very interested this morning by the presentation of the HEIDA project, because there are many common points, and the starting point, for instance, was really the same, this interrogation: what is quality in internationalization? And so I have a longish introduction to present the two institutions that I represent today, and that and the context of this sequent label that started off as a European project, exactly the same. So the European Consortium of Accreditation is an association of those quality assurance and accreditation agencies that wish to participate. It is informal. It's like a platform for exchanges between agencies, as we have all the same problems, the same issues, and it's very good to exchange. And it is all kinds of agencies, like my French agency is just dealing with engineering degree programs at master's level, but there are all other kinds of evaluation and accreditation agencies that deal with all higher education programs. So the topics are broad and of general interest normally to all of us. And so it was founded in 2003, and my agency CTI is a member since 2005. And the main aim is exchange of good practice, mutualize. For example, when we have evaluation of joint programs, we can have joint evaluation procedures and agreements. We exchange experts. We have database that is shared. And the idea is to make it easier, because there are more and more joint and double degrees, and to recognize accreditations from one country to another. And there is an interesting database. If you are looking up for a program and you ask yourself, is it accredited by the national authority in a country? So all the member agencies of ICA, we have a joint database that is called Crossroads, and where all of us have a link to this database of the accredited programs. And so, of course, the agency must be a member of ICA, but it can be a useful tool to check the quality assurance of a particular program or institution. I myself, I'm a full-time staff member of the French accreditation body for engineering education, Commission des titres d'ingénieurs. In France, there are no professional organizations. The engineering profession is not regulated, but the degree is regulated. And in order to be able to award an engineering degree, you have to be accredited by CTI. So it is a kind of the guardian of the quality of the teaching and learning and outcomes of the engineering profession. It is very old. It is one of the oldest quality assurance agencies in the world, I would say. I think there's one British one that is still older. It was founded in the 30s because there was this, people were asking, there were many new engineering programs coming up, and there was really the issue of quality. How to make sure that new programs are up to the expectancies. And in the 90s, CTI started to evaluate periodically every engineering program, which it still does today. We also award, we can do a joint procedure and award a quality label for engineering that maybe some of you know. It's the EURACE label, which is also, it's a European association that set up the standards and guidelines, and the EURACE label may be awarded at bachelor and master level if all the quality assurance is okay with the standards and guidelines. So I come back to our European Consortium of Accreditation. So we have working groups and share experiences. And exactly as for the HEIDA project, we asked ourselves, what is quality in internationalization? How to check quality. And the concept, the definition of internationalization, we took exactly the same definition as the HEIDA project, which is the Jane Knight definition. And we started with a European funded project from 2012 to 2015. It was coordinated by the Dutch-Flemish agency NVAO, because in those days ICA had no legal existence, which it now has. It was 14 agencies from 10 countries participated to the project, and associated partner organizations, and the objective was to identify indicators. So you are about data of indicators, and we asked ourselves which indicators would be significant for identifying quality in internationalization. And we considered two levels, the institutional level and the program level. And we defined standards and guidelines which are slightly different if it's a program or an institution. And then we said we will identify good practice and disseminate good practice. And from the start, there was the question, should we, at the end of the European project, create a certificate and promote it and award it to those who wish to apply. So that was the starting point of our project. So the name, you see the first line, Certificate for Quality in Internationalization, shortcut SEQUINT. So there were 15 pilot procedures. Each agency proposed an institution or a program to be a pilot in different countries. And so we evaluated 10 programs, 4 institutions, and then during the project came up there is something in between, which is a department or a school. And the example was a Spanish university where there was one school who applied. So they are not at program level, but they are not at institutional level either. So it was interesting to see if our framework would apply, which one would more apply to a school or department. So it was for us a good test. In the end, we decided not to make a third framework, but to apply the framework of institutions also to departments or schools. And then the dissemination conference was in February 2015, so it's not so old, so it's not so far away. And then we decided to create the certificate. And today there are 15 members of ICAR that may award the certificate at 2 levels, program or institution. You may say, for example, my institution is not ready as a whole. We have no defined strategy, no tools, so we will not apply as a university. But we have one program that is totally internationalized, which may get the label. So it is up to the institution or the program director to decide on which level to apply. There are 3 key documents you will find on the website of ICA. I give the references at the end. So there's the framework, which describes the contents, what we expect, the guidelines. And there is a guide for the self-evaluation report, how to fill in the self-evaluation report. We ask to provide documents of proof for what you say as quality in your different items. And that is where the HEIDA project is very interesting, because the SEQUINT project says, okay, you say there is a lot of international exchanges between a network of 10 universities. Show proof. Why do you say it's good or high quality? And that's where the HEIDA data can be very interesting to have the indicators of this quality. But in our SEQUINT project, we leave it totally up to the institution of the program to provide whatever proof they wish. It is really more oriented on quality, and we leave the initiative to the applicant to provide the proof. And there is also a third document that can be interesting anyway. It is connected but not directly. It is a guide on specific learning outcomes of intercultural and international learning outcomes. It can be a very interesting document just to read and to take into account when you apply for the certificate or just for information. And then there was the question when the outcome of the European project was, okay, ICA will award a certificate. And we as an agency also, we said another certificate. It's like was said this morning, we heard that as institutions we get so many surveys and we have to fill in all these figures and it's not always the same figures and we have to start it all over again. And it's the same. We are quality checked by the National Agency for Research, by the Accreditation Agency for Engineering degree programs. Do we want another institution that comes and checks and provide proof, etc.? And so we as an agency had also to decide whether we go for the certificate or not. So the reasons why we decided to participate were because in France, in our case, in French engineering education, internationalization is a must to be accredited. But until now, very often for our experts, it is very restrictive. Internationalization is very often interpreted as student mobility, teaching staff mobility, and proficiency in English. And that's it. And we thought that was a little bit restrictive and that there were many other means and ways to internationalize an institution, a program. And so it was interesting to have this tool to think about this. What is internationalization? It was very interesting to set up a common methodology with all these European agencies to work together to find common items, and we agreed about the common framework. They are qualitative criteria, because also it was a necessity, because our agencies were so different. Some evaluate medicine, law, engineering, social sciences, humanities, so it was so different, it had to fit all types of institutions and programs. Private, big university, research universities, applied science, so it had to fit for everyone, so it is quite global. It was also a good idea to identify and value good practice, and it is our aim also to participate to the European construction, and it was a good means to have a common tool, a European tool. And for the institution, we said at the first level it's just an auto-evaluation tool. Just use the auto-evaluation guide and try to fill it in and think. I give you an example. In those days, I was still working in an engineering school. And the first question, the first criteria is there a general internationalization strategy in your institution? So I said, oh yes, sure, there is. So we are good. And then the second question is, do all your stakeholders know about this strategy? Are they aware of the strategy? And then I start to think, do our companies who offer internships, all our students, does the whole network of stakeholders, are they aware? Do we really communicate efficiently on this strategy? So it is a very efficient way to ask the questions, the good questions about how you internationalize and how you manage internationalization. It is very objective feedback by international experts. The expert team that awards the certificate there must be one person on the team from the national system who knows the national constraints and regulations, and the others, there must be 2 members from other countries with another view and another input, and there must be 1 student. It is so always good to have other people look at what you are doing. And it is, of course, identify good practice. Sometimes people were surprised when the expert said, well, this is great, this is special, no one else does this, and people were sometimes surprised that they had this good practice, and they can promote it on the website of ICA. And it can be, because the label is not compulsory, and maybe one university is putting emphasis on sustainable development, other engineering schools, for example, in France, put an emphasis on the management of communication tools. There are different labels, so you can choose a label that fits your institution best and shows what is excellent at your specific institution. So we decided to participate to the certificate because it was, and an institution could just use it as a tool. It could share examples of good practice, even if you don't apply for the certificate. So you can go through the website of HEIDA, and if you are convinced that your program or university has a very good practice, you can just apply on the site, explain your practice. Then there is a certification group that reads the proposals and that can say, yes, we will publish it on our website as a good practice, without having to apply for the certificate. And then, of course, the third level would be to apply for the certificate. And this is probably the most interesting for you, the most interesting slide. So it is really the references, the criteria and standards that we took into account. So there are 5 standards at institutional level and 5 at program level, and each time 3 sub-criteria. And the first is intended internationalization, so that is, as I said before, where it starts. Do you have an internationalization goal? Is it, did you define verifiable objectives to put it into practice? And do all your stakeholders know about it? And does it have a positive impact on education? It should not be something at the institutional level that the rector has this great idea about internationalization, but it doesn't have any influence on any program. So on the second level, did you put into place an action plan? And that is sometimes already difficult for my experience, that once you have a strategy, it's not so difficult to describe a strategy, but what measures have you taken to realize the strategy? And does it ensure the achievement of your goals? It must have, and that was something I heard of the HEIDA project this morning also, it must have all dimensions of an institution. It must include learning outcomes, teaching, learning. It must include staff and students. It must be overall reaching the whole life of the institution. And then the support part, the third criteria, support. Once the general management has defined an internationalization goal, is there the necessary means and staff and things put into place to realize the goal? Or is it just an idea? The third standard is about implementation and the information system. Do you have the technical means to collect and process relevant information? Do you really think it's important to have this information system in place for an effective management of your internationalization policy? And do you have documented outcomes and proof of results? And that is exactly what HEIDA is proposing. And the fourth standard is enhancement. So can you demonstrate that it has been implemented? Does it really enhance the quality of the education and of the research of the university? And are the stakeholders involved internally and externally in the enhancement of the internationalization? And the fifth standard is about governance. Are the responsibility clearly defined? Who does what at what level? Who is in charge of what at what level? The structure how is it structured, what is the leadership, at what level, and can you demonstrate the reaction to the input. So that is, all these items are at institutional level, and as you see, it must really be something that is reaching overall in the institution and going outside to the stakeholders, not something worked out in an office of a rector or a president. And then at program level, you see the first standard is the same. Do you have a strategy for your program of internationalization? And do you have goals and objectives? And does it have an impact on the general overall quality of your program? And then it's more focused on training on the programs. Did you define international and intercultural learning outcomes? How do you carry out the student assessment? Does it take into account these intended learning outcomes? And have you evaluated the graduate achievement? So there has to be an input of the alumni and of the achieved intended learning outcomes. And then teaching and learning is about the program contents, is the internationalization in the contents of the program. Are there some teaching methods that are encouraging internationalization? And what is the learning environment of the program? Is it international? Really international. The staff and the students, it's the same criteria. What is the composition of your staff? Is it only national, regional staff? Is your staff very international? If they are national, do they have an international experience? And we speak not only of the teaching staff, we speak also of the administrative staff. And do you provide services for students and for the staff members to improve intercultural or international competencies? And then the procedure, I mean, I can go maybe more quickly. So you can apply through any of the agencies that award the program within ICAR. You write an auto-evaluation report. There is a site visit by a panel of experts, the assessment report, and then the agency makes the decision. In some countries, the agencies are not allowed to make decisions. They can only give an advice. In that case, it is ICAR that takes the decision, and there is a check by the certification group that the rules, the procedures were respected. So it's the last check, it's not very complicated, and then on the website of ICAR we publish the results, and then the award is official. And what is also maybe interesting is the assessment scale. So for each of the 5 standards, the 3 criteria globally, at the end it's the standard that gets a mark. Unsatisfactory, satisfactory, good, or excellent. And excellent means that it is a good practice. What the expert felt was really exceptional and a good practice. And you cannot get the label if one standard is unsatisfactory, and you have to have 3 good or excellent to be able to get the certificate. And here are some examples of good practice. The first was maybe the one that, so I did not participate, of course, to all the pilots. I participated to one pilot, and I got the restitution. So I don't know so well the examples of good practice. This one was really impressive because it is a small economics management school in Germany that has no student mobility at all. So if you look at the criteria, student mobility is 0, but the whole program is totally international. They don't need to go anywhere because they are all international. There is, I think, no nationality had more than 2 students. There were 20 nationalities in the class, student and staff the same, administrative and teaching staff, everything was international. The curriculum was about European law. the curriculum content was international. And it was really a great example of how a program can be really, the institution, sorry, can be really totally international everywhere. And they had a goal, defined goal with objectives, and they had this check, which was very interesting, the catalog of measures, and then they carried out this control. They checked the last 3 years and the upcoming 3 years and look how they performed and how they will, what are the aims for the coming 3 years. It was really overall a very, very good example. And of course here in this case, as opposed to this, what we heard this morning, the location was a privilege because they are located at the frontier of 3 countries. So naturally the program includes a visit to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, which is next door. So it was quite easy also to be international in this context maybe. So, also the experts felt that it was a strong support by everyone at the high management level, professors, administrative staff, students, everyone was enthusiastic. There is an alumni association. They all work all over the world now, but they still meet regularly and come back to the institution to share their experiences. So a very good example. At program level, I have 2 examples at program level. One is a bachelor program in the Netherlands who have done a matrix of intercultural and international learning outcomes per course, saying that the course would be a teaching module. So they said this matrix helped them a lot to follow up the achievement of the learning outcomes. So it was a very practical way to measure the achievement of intended learning outcomes. And the last example is also very interesting. It's also a Dutch university of one program. They had some teaching staff, they had problems with conflict in a classroom. They had themselves a low experience of internationalization. So they set up a center and a platform for exchanges. So it can be, it is like, this is on the level of services to the staff. You can, when you have a problem, you can go and talk to someone who can accompany you. They have an online tool, they have data collection, analysis, and they can exchange and get help from people who had similar experiences or have a higher rate of internationalization. So a very interesting tool for staff services. And that's it. And here is the link to the website. So the general website of ICA, so ICA highereducation.Europe, and then the more specialized pages on the internationalization label. Okay, so I'm ready to ask some of your questions.
Yes, please.
When you gave the example of Saarland University, you said there is no mobility whatsoever, but it's still internationalized in all aspects. So they have international students. Does that mean that all the international students there are full-time?
Yes.
They're not no exchange students, but they're all full-time, right?
Yes, it is I don't remember very well the details, but it's a short program. I think they have master programs, I think. So they are relatively short.
So it's just masters?
Yes, yes. If I remember well. But you can check on the internet site of ICA or of the university for the details. As I said, I don't know so well the good practices. I just checked myself from what I remembered from our meetings. And yeah, but it was I was surprised personally for me, and it came out this morning as one of the main indicators was the level of student mobility. And one of our best practices was without student mobility, which is interesting in this certificate, I think, because it leaves room to innovation or particular study cases. It's not everyone is identical.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? I would like to ask as you remember in the presentation when Melissa present the results of the questionnaire we applied for the different indicators in internationalization, we saw that there are at the end some indicators which are not very present, chosen by, and most of them were related to the academic activity.
Yeah.
Especially those information which is related to the number of conferences teachers attended during the course and so on. How do you reach this kind of information, the information provided by the academics?
But it's different in this project because we do not impose anything. For example, as applicants may be institutes of applied science which have low level of research, they're not so research focused, they will not push forward the research part. Other high-level research universities will focus a lot on the research and give those indicators. There are some indicators, I think in the auto-evaluation report you should supply some indicators we ask for systematically, but otherwise we don't ask for indicators. It's your strategy. What did you write in your strategy and what are the indicators you have put into place to show that the strategy is implemented? And it is exactly the example of Saarland is very good because one of the obvious indicators is student mobility and they do not show this indicator because it's of no interest to them. And yet they are good at internationalization. So this is a much more open, the standards are very open and it's up to the institution to describe its strategy and how it implements this strategy.
So each university
Oh, yeah.
has the possibility to choose its own indicators. It's a very personalized approach.
It's really, it starts from the internationalization goal. What is your goal? So many items. What are the objectives that show that you can follow the implementation and the enhancement? And those are the indicators you choose, which go with your goals. And then obviously, it's often the main indicators you found are often there because they are obvious. Student staff mobility, yes.
Other questions or comments or maybe some similar experiences in your own universities?
And I didn't so much stress it, but we had a lot of discussion at the beginning between international and intercultural when we speak of learning outcomes because it's not really the same, but that was an interesting discussion also. But we included both. And intercultural can be in the same country without having different nationalities, different backgrounds. Yeah.
Any good practice maybe in your own universities?
I thought when I compared the standards and criteria with my own engineering school, I find it's really complete because we did, as I said at the beginning, we did have a strategy, but we did not go as, for example, if I would have applied, maybe I would have applied for an engineering program at program level, but never at institutional level. Because we have other short training programs and we didn't really care if it was internationalized. So it is difficult to have it all through, at all levels of the institution, with all stakeholders, everyone supporting and believing in it and participating in the internationalization. I think it's a really big job. I don't think many institutions are there. There was a French university that got the label, that was a pilot for the institutional level, and they had a very nice program. It's in, speaking of location, they are in Reims. Well, there's a champagne producing region, but apart from that, they are close to Paris. Too close to be really attractive as it's a small city, and they have had this problem of attracting international students and professors, and they have this their good practice was also, they have set a whole program of welcoming and of integrating international students and staff with the city of Reims. So when you arrive in the city of Reims, instead of the tourist office in the city center, you have also the welcoming office of the university run by the city to help you for everything, for paperwork, for accommodation. And the people in the university were very proud of this, and the people in the city were very proud of this. So everyone knew about it and was proud about it. So that is something, it was really permeating the whole institution and city. So that was a nice example also of good practice.
If there are no more questions, thank you very much, Mary Jo.
There was one.
I have decided lately because you are talking mostly about engineering. I am not in that area, but I'm working on a joint program in health nowadays. It is in diabetes nursing, and we are preparing a joint master program in diabetes nursing. Accreditation is our very important subject nowadays when we prepare the program, but it is quite difficult actually. There are other barriers in the background. For example, we work as a five universities from 5 different countries, but education system is different also. This is the main major issue to deal with and to make equality between the systems. Also, UK has its own system, and maybe two questions to you if you have time. One is if you have any experience about accreditation of a program in a health subject in medicine or nursing, and if you give some clues from your experience you have. And other question about UK perspective. How is the accreditation difficulties when UK university is a partner, because they don't belong to Bologna process? This is another barrier for accreditation. Could you give some ideas?
Yeah, so that is a bit a part of the topic, because I was speaking of the internationalization label, which applies to any type of institution or programs. It just happens that I come from an accreditation agency in engineering, so I'm not a specialist of other fields, but in ICA, for example, there are some other agencies that deal with this type of programs. And yes, normally in each country, either it is one agency or several agencies that are specialized, or there is an agency that is global for any type of programs. Then things are changing. For example, the Dutch-Flemish agency, NVAO, they are in a pilot phase, they stopped doing program accreditation. They want now, and which is conform with the Bologna process and the European standards and guidelines, they say the institutions must have internal quality assurance system. And the agency just checks if the internal quality assurance system is okay. And they don't look at each program anymore. It's also more efficient for an agency. Sometimes they might look at one program if there is a problem identified, or new programs maybe. But so there's a shift now in Europe towards global institutional accreditation and no longer program accreditation. And then the problems you pointed out is typical for joint or double degrees in all fields in Europe. Because you have the national regulations, which are still different. But on the other hand, the Bologna process was a bit based on the Anglo-Saxon system, the bachelor, master, PhD. At least we have the same level of degrees, even if we don't put the same things in each degree, but still a bachelor and a master. So if your program is at master level, that's already a nice step to have a common agreement on a common degree that is awarded. And then, the national regulations, you cannot, there is, for example, in France, there's this absurd regulation that we are working on it. If you have a joint degree, a French degree must be on a paper that says République Française. So you have a joint Turkish-French degree, and your Turkish university must have on the degree a paper from the government of France. And the university said at least do half the page, and the other half of the page is for the partner country. No, French degree must be on the paper French Republic. I mean, there are some absurdities in national regulations that are being overcome by and by. And the more there are joint degrees or double degrees, the more we will have the pressure to change regulations. But that's then, it's hands-on between the partners to negotiate.
Okay, so let's continue with the last, is the fourth session in this room. And this time we are going to speak about big data and informed decision making in higher education. And the presenter is Lawrence Vehmeijer. It's analytics and consulting team from Study Quarters, Netherlands. And I will, please, if you want to explain us a little bit what is about in Study Quarters, and then you can enter in your presentation, 20 minutes if you agree with that, and then just another 20 minutes for questions and comments.
Oh, hello. As you said, my name is Lawrence. I'm a consultant at Study Portals. That requires a bit of explanation. I'll go into a bit more of that later on. But suffice to say, we call ourselves the Amazon of higher education. Students can look at programs they want to study in other countries, anywhere in the world. Originally, Thijs van Vught was going to be here. He's my boss, but he couldn't make it. So you may notice that the title is a bit different from what's in your folders. That's because I adjusted it to my own expertise. So this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to start with a quick introduction, then give some examples of data insights, and we'll close off with conclusions and a question hour. Who am I? Like I said, Lawrence Vehmeijer. I'm a Dutchman with a background in science and business, something completely different. But I got into higher education through consulting, which I love and is very interesting. I'm a junior consultant at the analytics and consulting team. And right now I'm mostly a market researcher and a writer. Who are we? The analytics and consulting team of Study Portals was founded officially 9 months ago. So I was actually the first employee there, working there. We call ourselves ACT, Analytics and Consulting Team. Our motto is acting on the inside of 16 or more million students. And our services are broadly divided into three categories: analytics, consulting and market insights, consultancy, and training. Our team currently consists of 4 people. Thijs van Vught, a veteran in the field with 25 years of experience. Meltem Oktay, a very talented data consultant. Myself, and Tahir Farzami, who is a full-time data science researcher. What is Study Portals? Study Portals is our parent company, basically. Like I said, we call ourselves the Amazon of higher education. We have 9 websites, one for bachelor's, one for master's, one for PhD, one for language learning, distance learning, short courses, preparation courses, scholarships, and student experiences. As you can imagine, that's quite a lot. We have currently 134,000 courses online all over the world, and 2,500 universities in almost 70 countries. This generates a lot of traffic. We have almost 17 million unique visitors per year. I actually checked this morning, right now it's 16.9, and we're growing approximately 4% per month. We also have 1 million registered students who have an account with us that we can contact whenever we want. We track everything. It sounds a bit creepy. We anonymously track who looks at what, who they are, where they want to go, and much, much more. And that's actually why I'm here today. This is what we do. On the left, you see the data that we have. So the 9 portals with the courses, university, countries, 17 million visitors per year, 28 million sessions per year, and almost 90 million page views per year. We also have 1 million registered students, of whom almost half are just from 2016. We can use that to track, to analyze. We can analyze the gender of students. We can analyze the age of students. We can look at countries where they're actually from. We can also look at the search patterns. Which countries they want to go to, which disciplines they want to study, what courses do they favorite, and what's the pattern in tuition fee and duration of the programs they favorite. We also have other insights. We can do competitor analysis on the programs we have listed. We can see what technology is used by students, what month of the year they look at studies, and we can even send surveys to registrants. We have many happy clients. The list of happy clients is right now, I think, 6 or 7 pages. These are some examples, among which University of London, Sabanci, Wageningen, and much, much more. Well, I'll give some examples of the data insights that we can actually produce. I actually just realized it sounds a bit like a marketing pitch. It's not supposed to be that. It's just to show you what you can use data for. Like I earlier said, competitor analysis. When I said we're like Amazon, it's more ways than one. Amazon, Netflix, and other e-commerce companies often use item-by-item collaborative filtering, this technique to use to suggest other products. Suppose you're on Amazon looking for a TV, you're looking at a Philips TV or something, for example, then suggest other users also bought Sony TVs or DVR or something similar. We use the same technique, not to suggest products to students, but to look for our clients, for universities, which other programs and universities and countries they compete with. So for program A, we can look what other programs, visitors who looked at that program, also looked at. So top 20 competing programs, top 10 most competing institutions, top 10 most competing countries, and the maximum and the tuition fees and durations of the programs these students looked at. This is an example of one we did. I actually don't know for which program it is. I think it's something with psychology. This is an example of competitor analysis we ran. We show the top 20 most competing programs of program A. First we have the institution where they're located at, we have the program, the tuition fee, and the relatedness. The relatedness requires a bit of explanation. The relatedness is the percentage of the students who looked at program A that also looked at one of these programs. So 52% of the people who looked at program A also looked at psychology at Radboud University, which means that psychology and the second one, the international bachelor of psychology, are the two main competitors of that degree program that they looked at. By now I'll go to a different program, a different software program, I mean. We made a very cool market analysis dashboard that we're quite proud of. In Tableau. This is a dashboard that we made. There are 4 fields: the top 20 countries of origin, the country's destination, the disciplines, and the yearly orientation pattern. I should mention this dashboard has been made specifically for European programs, specifically European bachelor and master programs. What we, for example, can do is we can select bachelors. Now we're filtered only for bachelor programs, so we can see, we'll look at the patterns of bachelor programs. Okay, could anybody name a country they want to get a look at for bachelor programs? Any country? Holland? Okay, let's go to Holland. It's a bit hard to select because it's a tiny country. So if I click on Holland, you see the numbers change. So here you can see which percentage of the students who come from Holland look at which countries. Apparently, Holland, compared to the rest of the world, this is the rest of the world again, you see that Holland is a lot less focused. Apparently Dutch students are much more interested in other countries, more unconventional countries, than other students are. Here you can see the disciplines that the Dutch are interested in. These are ranked from high to low for European degrees in general. But you can see that Dutch students are, like always, more interested in business and management studies. And they are also more interested in humanities and in computer science and IT, and arts degree and arts design and architecture. They look slightly more for education degrees in September and October, and less in December. Well, let's select another country. Let's select Spain. See, the numbers change again. Spanish don't look for programs in summer, only in autumn. They really want to go to the UK, apparently. 33% of all Spanish students on our portals look at UK studies. They are very interested in computer science and IT, and relatively more interested in humanities again. Well, let's do something else. Let's go to master degrees and select Finland as a country of destination. So this is specifically programs in Finland. Okay, Finland draws more students from India and from the UK, apparently. Business management is very popular again, but computer science and IT is also much more popular. As you may notice, there are two different things here. You've got the orange vertical bars. Those are the percentage of page views that these disciplines get. You also have the horizontal black bars. Those are percentage of courses that we have online in each discipline in that country. So the orange bar is basically the demand, where the black bar is the supply. So you can see that for business management, the demand is higher than supply. So the market opportunity for business management programs in Finland is very high. The same goes for computer science and IT. There's more demand than there is supply. But for social sciences, there are more programs, relatively speaking, than there are page views. So it's harder to get enough international students if you start a new degree in social sciences in Finland. Well, if we go back to the general view, we can also select a program. Let's also select a discipline. Let's select natural science and mathematics. Okay, again, India is a very popular country of origin. Sorry, it's a very high popular country of origin, but it's slightly more divided over the rest of the world than it is was for the other disciplines. For country destination, Germany is the most popular country destination for natural sciences and mathematics. Well, we can go on and on with this. If you want, in the question session, I can give a bit longer demonstration. But let's go back to my actual presentation. So we can basically analyze what the countries of destination are of students, what the countries of origin are, what disciplines they're interested in, and what the relative supply and relative demand of each discipline is, and we can analyze the yearly orientation pattern. What does this mean for return on investment? I've given this an example. I used a dashboard to make these slides. I look specifically at master programs that are organized by Turkish institutions. This table right here, it's a bit small. There are 4 columns in it. First is the top 20 countries of origin. Then there is the percentage of page views that Turkish master degrees receive from each of those countries of origin. So 21% of all page views received by Turkish master degrees originates from Pakistan. The column to the right there, the second column in numbers, is for European masters in general. So that's for all European masters together. Only 5% of the page views that European masters receive come from Pakistan. Well, the most colorful column all the way to the right, there we simply divided the percentage for Turkey by the percentage for Europe. And then we used conditional formatting in Excel to color it from green, high, yellow, middle, to red, low. So here we can see the relative popularity of Turkish master degrees compared to the rest of Europe in each of those countries. Well, you can see that Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, Nigeria, Indonesia, and Egypt, these show higher than average interest in Turkish master degrees. So that means that if you direct your marketing efforts towards these countries, you have a higher return on investment than for, say, Ireland, which is very much in the red. We can do the same for disciplines. This is basically the same approach we use for country of origin, but then for the disciplines. Here we have the disciplines that we have online for Turkish master degrees. So these are the percentages. So 24% of all Turkish master degrees on our portals are in engineering technology, but there we have no agriculture and forestry degrees online. Well, this column is the same for Europe, and the column all the way to the right is again the same approach. We divide the percentage for Turkey by the percentage for Europe. And then we can see which disciplines are relatively more popular among people who want to study in Turkey. Well, it turns out that natural science and mathematics, engineering and technology, education and training, and arts design and architecture are much more popular than in Turkey than in the rest of Europe. So if you market for these disciplines, you have a higher return on investment. This is slightly different. Here we looked specifically at Turkey, and we looked at relative demand and relative supply. Again, this is the discipline. This is the relative amount of page views that each discipline receives. So that we also saw in the previous one. So that is the relative demand for Turkish master degrees in each discipline. This is the percentage of courses that we have online in each of those disciplines. So that is the relative supply of programs. Again, we divide the demand by the supply, and then we get something that we call a market opportunity rating. So if it's something is 100%, demand, relative demand matches relative supply. If something is above 100%, therefore green, there's more demand than there is supply. So there's a very favorable market for degrees in those programs. If the opposite is true, so the relative demand is lower than the relative supply, the market is saturated, and you probably shouldn't start a new program in that discipline. For master degrees in Turkey, we can see that hospitality, leisure and sports, medicine and health, natural science and mathematics, and engineering and technology, that there is a market opportunity there. So there is a gap in the market there. That's where we very favorable disciplines for investment in new courses. Conclusions. This whole presentation was basically to show you how powerful data can be. And these are the questions that data, or at least our data, but probably also data from the HEIDA project, can answer for market analysis. Where is the demand for your programs coming from? What should be your focus countries? Which disciplines are popular in your country? Where is the market opportunity? And much, much, much more. This was a very information-dense and presentation, so I want to give you this message. Data can be very powerful. Data can be analyzed to provide valuable insights. These insights are the basis for informed decision-making and performance measurement. If you don't want to, as Andy earlier said, some people do it from the gut. Data can be used to make decisions from the mind. So if you use informed decision-making, this can yield higher return on investment because you actually base your decisions on what is measured. But, very important to keep in mind, data needs to be collected, it needs to be contextualized. What data is important to track? We use page views to measure interest, but we could also use, for example, unique visitors, or we could use the time on page. So you need to know which data is important to keep track of. The more data you have, and the more reliable your analysis is. The more reliable your analysis is, the more reliable your decisions are, and thus the higher the likelihood of actual higher return on investment. And very importantly, your insights are only as good as your data, and your analytic methods and your interpretation. Okay, forgive me for using a swear word, but in IT there is a saying, crap in, crap out. If bad data comes in, bad insights will come out. So really, really, really make sure your data is correct and is, what's the word for that in English? And is proportional, basically. So use the correct and relevant sources. Use the correct analytical methods. And keep in mind things like statistical deviation, R-square, and more statistics jargon. And the last one is probably the most important. I should probably make this all orange. Interpretation is everything. You really, really, really be sure that you interpret your data and your results correctly. To take an example, I will go back a bit. For example, agriculture and forestry in Turkey is red. That would suggest that there is no market for agriculture and forestry. But there are also no courses online for agriculture and forestry. So we can measure page views because there's no page to view. Does that mean that there is no market there? It could also be a gap in the market that you could easily invest in. Interpretation is everything. We have a whole separate sales department, and we're a bit wary of what data we give the sales department because we don't want them to wrongly inform clients with wrong interpretations. So really make sure that you have the correct people making the correct interpretations. And that was it. Are there any questions?
What does yearly orientation pattern mean?
That's a metric we're still kind of developing. Actually, go over it. This is the yearly rotation pattern. So what we here measure is what percentage of students take the entire year of page views, and then we measure what percentage of page views come in which month. We're literally currently developing methods to make it more reliable, because right now we have not come in very well for the portal growth. We're growing 4% per month, which is huge. I made this presentation on Monday, and then the amount of page views, the amount of visitors was 16.7 million. Checked it this morning, now 16.9 million. So we have a lot of growth, but we can more or less reliably say that in general, students look slightly more in January for European master degrees than in December.
Okay. So it basically tells us when to advertise in which part of the world.
Yes. But be wary. Here's 5%, here's 10%. So the variation is only 2 or 3%. So you will get a slightly higher return on investment by only advertising in January or in August. But it's not that much difference.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? I'm wondering if you have an example of decision made or based on some evidence.
Actually, I have an example for Netflix for that. Okay. This is an example I really love. Netflix analyzed the viewer patterns of their users. They noticed that people who loved Kevin Spacey movies also loved political dramas, and they also especially loved the British series House of Cards. So what did Netflix do? They put Kevin Spacey in an American adaptation of House of Cards, and right now it's one of the most popular series out there. So that's a good decision, yes. I should mention that the page views that we get are a reliable predictor for the results a year and a half later. We double-checked it with NUFIC, which is a Dutch education research organization, and the vision for Dutch universities, for Dutch international students, the discipline interest almost matched the actual disciplines that students enrolled in a year and a half later, almost 100%. So we checked at least for the Netherlands. We're going to check it for other countries as well once we get reliable data for that. But it's quite reliable for a year and a half later. Yeah. If you want, I can show you the dashboard again. I can take suggestions for countries or disciplines you want to take a look at.
And who usually demand this information? Are they the institutions or organization or maybe ministries?
Mainly universities, actually. I did a project last week for Politecnico di Milano, do a project for Wageningen University right now, we did a project for University of London. At any moment we have about 10 projects running for different universities in the Netherlands. In the world.
If it is possible, can we select Turkey as a country destination?
Perfect, yes. I'm going to sit down for this because that's a bit easier on my back. So this is the dashboard again. Let's select Turkey as a country of destination. So keep in mind, this is the breakdown for all European master degrees. So if we take a look at Turkey, we see that a lot of demand is coming from Pakistan, from Turkey itself, from Iran, from Egypt, surprising much from Nigeria actually, which I didn't expect. And actually from the US as well. So
There was also Indonesia in the data in another slide.
exactly. Indonesia is also 4%. For the other slide, looked at master degrees specifically, so maybe that changes a bit. Yeah, so it becomes a bit higher for Indonesia if you select master degrees. I should mention, however, you may have noticed that China is blanked out. That's because of the Great Firewall of China. They can't come on our websites through normal means. So Chinese students often use VPNs and other location hiding software to appear to come from the US or UK. So our numbers for the US and UK are slightly higher, but to our experience, Chinese students tend to use agents more anyway than doing their own research. So the numbers are not changed that much. But for Turkey, you can see that engineering technology is humongously popular as a discipline. And there is still market potential because the amount of courses is less than the amount of page views. So I could hardly recommend starting more degrees than that. But for social sciences and business, this is the first time I've seen that there is less page views than courses for business management. I've never seen it before actually. So there is less of an opportunity for new courses in business management. But it's a very small, gap, by the way. It's 12.8% of page views versus 14% of studies. That's a small gap. Arts design architecture is very popular, and natural science mathematics is popular.
For law, the supply is more than demand.
Sorry?
For law, I can't. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't read it.
Law, yes. There's less demand and supply for law. And I've got to admit that's for almost every country. Yeah. I'm not sure why, but international students are slightly less interested in law studies in general. Humanities. This is the first time I've seen that there's more opportunity for humanities in the country. There's usually much more supply than demand. That's quite interesting. Anything else you want to take a look at?
I'm just looking at the months as well.
Yeah, like I said, the months we're still working on that. Melton Oktay, our very talented Turkish student. Yeah, she's taking a Harvard course right now to exactly do this analysis.
Oh, okay.
So we're still working on that, and hopefully in a few months we'll have reliable data on that. You've received 2 pieces of paper, by the way. And this is, I think you should receive those. This is the social sciences report. We're producing digital reports and country reports right now. These are reports that are for sale for quite a low price, that you can get insight into a certain discipline. Social science is the first. We give them away for free, so please take one with you. We also have a brochure for trading, so if you want more trading in lead tracking or Google Analytics, any of this kind of stuff.
More comments or more exercises trying to take advantage of this tool now. Yes, please.
I can see my country is not well represented. Now, for example, if a given country, a given institution, like my institution, would be interested in using this particular tool, would you provide a training on this particular?
Normally, we just do market research to give you a report. So we don't give these tools just general access. But we have all those training and do a lot of custom stuff. So please contact us. You actually gave you my card. So please contact me if you want any research done or access to a tool or something similar. We also have several of these tools online for some countries, which are mostly European countries specifically. UK, Germany, Switzerland, Turkey, and some other countries. If you email me, I can give you a link to those dashboards that are currently online accessible through the browser. On the back of each of those social science reports is our email address, so if you send an email there, I'll give you the link. It's consulting and study portals, so very good. Well, if there's no more questions.
No more questions. So time to have a coffee break then?
Thank you very much for your time.